And then it was just one step at a time. And of course, then when I got to Everest on the 14th, 15th, it was literally, again, became very, very overwhelming. God, what have I done? And you start doubting yourself. And then I was, all right, I just need to reduce my time frame.
Today's guest is a graduate of the Coaching Academy, a professional coach who qualified in 2021 with a fantastic distinction grade. So congratulations there. And since then has continued to grow and develop himself using his skills and his coaching mindset just to keep propelling him forward and stretching himself to achieve incredible successes in so many areas of his life. And I'm hoping we're going to dive into some of that today. Now, he uses his coaching skills professionally and has done in his work in environment to open up new conversations at work. And personally, my guest has used his coaching knowledge to achieve many, many things. And one of the things that he has told me before coming on live is that he didn't think that the things that he has achieved would be possible before becoming a coach. Now, one of those things which I'm going to get him to dive into today is that about 3 weeks ago, he came back from achieving one of his biggest goals yet, and that was to climb to Mount Everest base camp. Now, when we say base camp, we think, oh, base camp, that must be at the bottom. Oh no, it's a very long way up. So we're going to talk about that as well. So it gives me the greatest of pleasure to introduce Sushil Sirpal. Welcome to Coaching Conversations, Sushil. There are just so many things I want to ask you about. But first of all, welcome.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. I've seen a few familiar faces there, colleagues, ex-colleagues, and few friends. So hi to everyone. And of course, hi to everyone else who I don't know.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, look, there are so many things I want to talk to you about today. And I know there's going to be lots of people also watching who are on various parts of their coaching journey. So before we dive into that, we were talking before we came on live today about where you are listening in from or talking to us from today. So it's a bit of an awesome place you're speaking to us from. Share with us where you're speaking to us from today.
So yeah, so my home is, of course, East London, and I'm actually at the moment in the London 2012 Olympic Games, where they were held in Stratford in Westfield, and I thought, what a place to talk about vision, goals, and performance, because as we know, coaching is all about forward focus, about what we want in life. And I thought, what a great place where, hundreds of sports people have, from around the world have come here. They once had a vision, they once had a goal. And I thought, what a great place for me to set up myself. So yes, I've booked a meeting room in Stratford at the Olympic Park. So that's where I'm dialing in from.
That certainly makes my home office sound very insignificant. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. I love that. Right. Well, let's dive into your story a little bit. And let's start right at the beginning with your journey into the healthcare industry and the reason that has brought you to want to train to be a coach.
Yeah, sure. So I currently work in the medical and healthcare industry. I've been here in the industry for about 15, 16 years, I would say, after I graduated in 2005-06. And I guess the main roles I've been in have generally been sales, business development, account management for a variety of healthcare companies. And I guess my day-to-day role has been, working with healthcare facilities, healthcare professionals, providing solutions so they can better take care of their patients. I work in the acute sector, and the current company I'm working for is also a medical supplies company. And I work in London and the Southeast. I'm responsible for about 35 hospitals across London and the Southeast. And I guess it's probably important to mention why, medical sales in the medical industry. So I think for me, it's always been really important to work in a role where I'm making an impact. And for me, it wasn't about going into any kind of sales role. It was really important to know that what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is making an impact somewhere. And for me, that impact was knowing that I'm supporting healthcare professionals, but then also that there's a patient at the end of the line. And I guess for me, that was really important, and hence why I've stayed in the medical and healthcare industry for so long. Rewind back to January 2020, I was going through a few life changes, which is not really important in terms of what they were, but we all go through changes, etc. And I wanted to focus a little bit. I started focusing a lot on personal development. I listened to a lot of motivational content, I guess, on a day-to-day basis, probably for the last 3 or 4 years. And I then kind of reflected and thought to myself, what do I want to really do next? And my cousin, who may be watching, and if not, he'll probably watch the recording. So he works in the pharmaceutical industry, actually. And I said to him, you know what, it'd be great if you can do a little coaching session with me. I want to focus on what I want in terms of career and in terms of personal development, fitness, health, all of those things. And, unfortunately, he gave me a little free 2-hour session, which I've done with him. And this was in January 2020. So what he got me to do was a little bit of a mind map. And, most of us, I guess our lives are fairly multidimensional, right? What I mean by that is, we have our career, we have our health goals, we have finance goals, family, health, relationships, whatever it be. So he got me to do a little bit of a mind map of, where am I at the moment and where I wanted to go. So, I was scribbling away my thoughts. And then by the end of that coaching process or midway through, one of the things that kept on coming up is I really wanted a skill, an additional skill set, which I can continue to use to help and develop and empower others, but also use it from more of a personal development standpoint, I guess, at that time. And coaching, the conversation started with coaching, as in my thought process started to go, but I didn't know much about it. And my homework or my action at the end of that coaching session was to research about coaching, of what it was. And that led me to the coaching academy. So bearing in mind, so this was at the end of January 2020. So I've done my research that night, in fact, and saw that new coaching academy had a 2-day seminar or 2-day workshop on the introduction of performance coaching. And I thought, okay, perfect, good timing. So I attended your day. I think it was in the Oxford Circus on Saturday and Sunday. And when I left, I knew this was the skill I was looking for. And it was funny how quickly that worked. And then moving on for that, so the next day, actually on the Monday, I was flying to Budapest for a company sales conference. So we have one every year, and we've got one coming up, actually. So I was actually buzzing through that whole week. And when I came back on the Friday, so the Monday to Friday, came back, done a little bit of research, cost, etc., and what it involves. And then signed up to your diploma on the following Monday. So from Feb 2020, I was studying to be a performance coach with you guys, evenings, weekends. And then, of course, in April 2021, I qualified with you guys as a performance coach. So that's kind of how my coaching journey begun. And I guess that was just the start of it, of course. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of a story.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's really interesting how so many of our students will say, one of the reasons or one of the things that drew them to coaching is either that, they experienced coaching for themselves and actually firsthand felt how powerful it was, and or other people saw a strength or a skill within them that sort of said, do you know what, I think you'd be a really good coach. So it's a very similar story, isn't it? And with that, what you mentioned about working within the healthcare industry and having that sort of desire to to support and help and make an impact on others, coaching, there's a lot of similarities and parallel lines there, isn't there?
Yeah.
So you said, obviously you qualified as a life coach, professional life coach, personal performance with that fantastic distinction grade. important to say that, because that's it's worth celebrating in itself, podium moment. Tell me a little bit about how your life has changed since qualifying, and also what you would say the single most important thing that you've learned about yourself since becoming a coach.
I would say it's definitely given me a lot more focus about what is it I want and why I want. And we were talking about, all of us out there, regardless of what we do, we have different areas of our life, right? We talked about health, finance, goals. And, all of us want to be successful. All of us want to be satisfied. But that word successful means something different for every single person, right? So you can never say that, there's one terminology for success. And what I found is by going through the coaching process, it helps you to define what success looks like in every area of our lives. And I would say that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned is we want to be successful in whatever we want to do. But if we haven't defined what success looks like for us, well, how are we ever going to get there? And I think that's probably the most valuable lesson I've learned. And, in terms of my coaching journey, like I said, I still work, like I said, in healthcare, and I will continue to do so. And for me, even though I qualified last year and I was working on that journey, one of the biggest things for me, and maybe this is because, I would say I'm quite self-critical sometimes, which sometimes is good, sometimes bad. But I guess for me, even though I qualified as a coach and was qualifying, and it's interesting how you mentioned about the word distinction, because for me, I don't see that as important personally yet, because the way I saw it for myself, and again, this is probably my self-critical, is I can be a coach, but just because I've got a distinction, it doesn't mean I'm a good coach. It's what I do with it. And I kind of referred it back to, the simple fact, we all go through a driving test, right? We all pass same marks, but not everyone out there is a good driver, right? So for me, I kind of had that analogy myself. So I then, focus. I thought, all right, what's the first area of performance I need to improve, because I need to practice what I preach. So in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've been focusing on my own performance, and that started off at work. And I started looking at, my own performance at work, where I am, where I want to go. And so for me, it was really important to kind of use the principles of coaching to improve my performance first before I go shouting and screaming that I'm a coach, because I think there's, for me, that was really, really important. So I started off with myself first. There's a few colleagues on here at the moment, so they can tell me to shut up if they want to. But yeah, so my last few years has been quite successful. In my previous roles, been, I would say, fairly successful. But the last, couple of years have been great. This year is also looking, it's going to be pretty good. And then, like I said, so my professional goals have been kind of first in line, practice what I preach. And then I've also been focusing on my personal goals, my personal development goals, health, fitness, travel, coaching, of course. And one of the current conversations I'm having now is with our learning development director, who I've just noticed is on our call, where I've actually been asked. So we've got a company conference coming up in Lisbon in a few weeks' time, or in Jan, and I've been asked to support the organisation with coaching. So we've spoken, with 30 to 35 leaders. So these are country managers all across Europe, which I'm really, really, really looking forward to. So that's been one of my goals, that I've been focusing on recently, in conjunction with my current sort of sales, business development role.
Fantastic. And that's a real testimony to somebody who really does walk their talk, and how, we can still be in that full-time role, but we practice what we preach. We start with ourselves first, because we always are our own first client, aren't we, as coaches, continually working on ourselves. And also, that other people notice, they see that difference and they're curious in what that is. Which is, as you rightly and well deservedly say, it's raised your profile within the working environment now to be talking about bringing coaching into your working environment. So wonderful, that's fantastic. So I know, because we spoke before this interview, that you told me that one of the other things that you've learned is that no matter how big our goal might be, it all starts with the first step. And I love that. And then with every step, you get a little bit closer. And that, that really resonated with me when you said that. Now, all of this is true, but for you, it's been sort of true in every sense of the word, much more recently, after completing what I would say is the most inspiring and incredible achievement in climbing to Mount Everest base camp. So if you don't mind, if we sort of switch on to that a little bit, because I'm just really curious just to find out what your motivation was for setting that for yourself as a goal.
Yeah, sure. So I guess we touched on it briefly before. Since I've qualified as a coach, I've been focusing on my own goals quite a lot. And I started with my performance at work, and then I've been looking at other areas. And one of the things I never wanted from myself, well, from others, but more probably from myself, is to really focus on my biggest goals. And I never wanted to say to myself or ask myself, well, what goals have I achieved? And I'm talking more probably self-talk here. And I thought, what is the biggest, boldest goal that I could go for that's going to push me mentally, physically to my limits and really challenge me and put me outside my own comfort zone? And in December, just gone, so 2021, I was supposed to go on a skiing trip at the end of December, got cancelled. France, of course, closed their doors. And the day I was supposed to go, I happened to get ill. It wasn't COVID, but temperature, whatever. So for the 5-6 days, I was lounging in front of the telly as you do. And I thought, oh, what can I test myself in this year? I want to continue to focus on work, my personal goals. What am I going to focus on? And Everest popped into my head. So I'm not a mountaineer. I'm not a trekker. The only thing close I've done is gone to the hill in the park. I'm joking. The only thing closest I've done. So my brother lives in Tokyo and he's been there for about 10 years. So I've been to Tokyo probably about 3 times now. And the last time I went was in 2018. And in 2018, I decided to go to Mount Fuji, but, I literally rocked up, probably didn't do much exercise. And I'll tell you what, I think I nearly died after those 2 days because it was such an incredible, it was an incredible journey. And, it was a 2-day trek. You started at 11 o'clock, I think 10 o'clock in the morning. You trek up the mountain till 6 p.m. You then sleep from 6 p.m. to midnight, and then you leave again 4 hours to get the sunset at Mount Fuji. So I had done that, and that was extremely challenging. But I got there, I got back. So it's been kind of tinkering my head. Oh, what about Everest? And it's like, sometimes when you have big goals and big dreams, it just tinkers in the back of your head, and you don't really do. Sometimes you don't do anything about it. So I was okay, Everest. So done my research, and during that last week of December, started doing a bit of, continued to do research, started looking into companies, and I came across this company called Ian Taylor Trekking. By the way, this is not a sponsored link. I like to share good stuff. So, and Ian Taylor is a mountaineer. He was, I believe, the youngest Everest summiteer. He's now a motivational international speaker. He runs a very successful trekking company all over the world, and basically I contacted him. I had a few Zoom calls with him just to find out what the expectations are. If you're going on so it's a 14-day trek to Everest base camp. I wanted to see, I'm not pushing myself too far, and doing something impossible. There still needs to be some sort of possibility to it. But so I contacted him. I had a Zoom call with him, which was great. Very inspiring person, and then decided in the last week of December, okay, I'm going to do Everest base camp. And the trek was from this, I think I left on Nepal on the 14th of April till the 30th. Paid my deposit first week of Jan. And then the first thing I'd done was open up the good old Excel spreadsheet, and I made a 98-day plan before I went there. And it was, I would say it was a 112-day plan from start to finish. And I started to, you start to get very overwhelmed very quickly. I thought, what the hell have you done? I was signed up to go to Everest. And, but I thought, so then I kind of ran myself back and, I thought, okay, let's use the principles of coaching. And the reason why this was important for me, like I said, I didn't want to question myself that what goals have I reached? And I thought, well, if I go for my biggest, boldest goal, then you know what, even I'll be satisfied with myself. So, like I said, made that plan, 198 days on Excel, what I need to do. And, Ian mentioned that fitness-wise, I had to work up to an hour on the Stairmaster. And the Stairmaster is literally, as you know, most people know at the gym, it mimics stairs. 30 minutes on the treadmill, 5-6 days a week, plus a longer hike in the weekends. But with that hour and a half, with a 10 kg weighted backpack. I think the first week I nearly had a heart attack because after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it was quite tough. But I thought, you know what, trust in the process, the basics of goal setting, and just continue to chip away and chip away. And by the end of those 98 days, I reached my target of an hour on the Stairmaster with 10 kg in my backpack and 30 minutes on the treadmill with 10 kg in my backpack. And it was amazing from starting so small to what you can get to. And coming back to your question, I guess I don't want to go off on the tangent, but I think sometimes when we set ourselves big goals, we get distracted because we don't know what step 5, 6, and 7 looks like. And I realized if you just take step 1, well, actually, rewind that. We get scared of step 5, 6, and 7 because we don't know what it looked like. And we've already lost the game because we don't even start. And it's very important, I think, from a professional and a personal standpoint, to start, set your goal and set the importance of why it is important. Because as we know, goal attainment is not easy in the best of days. So you really need to have a strong connection to our goals. And I guess we do this when we do coaching, because the first thing we focus on with clients is the goal. And why do we do that? We do that because we're connecting them deeply to their goal. So it's more likely that they're going to do actions at the end of it. So I had done that. I knew my why for my goal. And then it was just one step at a time. And of course, then when I got to Everest on the 14th, 15th, it was literally, again, became very, very overwhelming. God, what have I done? And you start doubting yourself. And then I was, all right, I just need to reduce my time frames. And I think that can probably be applied to life as well. Sometimes we can't, a year ahead seems too difficult. A month ahead, sometimes it feels too difficult. Yeah. Some people are struggling with looking at tomorrow. Yeah. So I think in those difficult times, what we need to do is reduce our time frames and focus on the here and now. And I've realized by doing that, there was points I was literally focusing on one step after another. And, I wasn't even looking forward. With Everest, like it's a long trek. You're trekking for 5 to 8 hours a day. And, you've got altitude to deal with, the oxygen levels are, at 70% compared to sea level. So it's just difficult to breathe. So your body's really getting hammered. So you just need to focus on one step at a time. So I've reduced my time scales. And, you go through different terrains, you go through every single season. It's hot at the bottom, it's cold at the top. And I just focused on every single step. And, there was sometimes, you walk through, flat surfaces, but then you're walking through boulders the size of cars, you through gravel, you go through all different types of terrain. And, one slip and you're gone. So, even if you sprain your ankle, that's your trip done. So it was really important for me, literally every single step where I'm planting my foot. And it's amazing how then that, that one step gets you to your next step and your next step. And I would say that's the biggest lesson I've learned, even, when you apply it to day-to-day life. Everyone talks about the first step, but for me, it literally was step by step in every sense of the way.
Yeah, wow, so powerful. And there's so much there actually that lessons from, who would have thought, lessons from climbing or preparing to climb Everest would actually be so relevant to all of us on a day-by-day basis. And I really liked what you said about that often we don't start because we don't know, or we're worried about what steps 5, 6 and 7 might look like. But actually we need to start, we just need to do that first step. And breaking things down into the first step. You sort of mentioned the whole sort of importance of why, and I guess, when it was really, really tough, I mean, we're going to sort of talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but when it was really tough, how did you keep going? What was it that you cemented in your head to keep you going at those parts when it was so difficult?
I would say having the reason of why I was there in the first place. Like I said, for me, it was more about my personal coaching aspect, because I thought, what kind of coach would I be if I don't reach my own goals? And for me, it was a really important goal. And like I said, to be honest, if I hadn't done it, I would have personally felt like a bit of a failure. I don't know if that's the case, but I thought, I've set myself this goal. I'm going to go for it no matter what. And I think I knew the end goal, and the end goal was always kept in mind. Talk about the end in mind from a coaching perspective. But then, like I said, it was just, I think I just broke down my time scales. I think that was probably the most important thing. Sometimes goals for too far away can seem a bit overwhelming. And I thought, let me just reduce my time frames, focus on next step. And then that just gives you the motivation, because you've taken the next step. Okay, what next? Okay, now it's another step. So I would say, having that importance of why, of course, is really, really important. But then if you've got a solid understanding of the importance of your goal, you don't really need to continue thinking that. You need to reach out to it to keep you motivated. But then it just becomes on, the daily actions. And I think it's quite interesting, like for me, and this is probably, I don't want to be regurgitating quotes, but there's one thing that really resonates with me. There's a very fine line, I find, between success and failure, and I think there's very close similarities between the two. Success to me doesn't mean you do one thing good. Let me rewind that. There's no such thing as overnight success, and there's no such thing as overnight failure. And if we do one good thing today, it doesn't make us successful tomorrow, and vice versa. If we do one bad thing today, it doesn't make us a failure tomorrow. But when you join them up and they become a collection of actions and disciplines on a day-to-day basis, it's that what is success and failure. So for me, success is a collection of good disciplines, actions repeated on a daily, consistent, frequent basis. And failure, on the other hand, is repeating mistakes on a day-to-day, frequent basis. And I think that's really, really important. And one of the guys who I listen to all the time is a guy called Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is, I think he was one of the inspirations to Tony Robbins, and another guy called Earl Shoaff. Unfortunately, he's not around, but he's got some amazing golden nuggets about success and failure. And I guess the biggest thing I've learned is, sometimes during that journey, it's not what you get at the end that's important, but it's what you become in the process of that. And yes, I got to Everest Base Camp. Actually, on the way back, I did struggle. And the 2 days after I got back to Kathmandu, I was actually in hospital on an IV for severe dehydration. But I had a big smile on my face, and it gave me time to go for my photos. But it was only 4 hours, and it wasn't anything major. But it was it was an amazing process. And like I said, now when I reflect back on it, yes, I've got the memories of being there, but I think it's what you become in the process of reaching your goals, because I definitely think I've become a lot more focused. And now, because I've done my biggest goal, I think I feel anything is achievable. And when we talk about performance, coaching for performance, John Whitmore, he talks about coaching is about unlocking potential. And potential for me is not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson that I've taken away, that we all have potential to be whatever it is we want to be. And, you know, coaching helps an individual to unlock that potential. And that's what I love about coaching, because it's not about telling someone what to do or how to do it. It's all about empowering an individual to understand where they are, where they want to go, and then helping them reach their goals. So yeah, so hopefully I didn't go on a tangent, but yeah, that was
fantastic. Well, there was some really lovely little nuggets there, some fantastic takeaways, what you were saying, really powerful. Now let's sort of talk a little bit more about that personal journey. And I loved what you said about, it's not what, the success or what you achieve at the end. It's what you become, who you become during the journey. And, that's so powerful. And the most incredible journey on so many levels. And you met some incredible people. Now, one of the people that you met on the journey was also a mountaineer. You just happened to, it's weird how people come across our paths, isn't it? Apa Sherpa, I think his name is. Now, for those people here that have never heard of him, tell us who he is and how he connects to what you were saying about your importance of our why, because he shared that with you, didn't he?
Yeah, so I guess if we could start with, so the definition of a Sherpa are Himalayan mountaineering and trekking guides, and we had two amazing Sherpa guides with us who are literally there for the whole process. And I had never heard of Apa Sherpa before, but one of the other guys said that this guy Apa Sherpa started climbing in, I think, 85, and he climbed Mount Everest 21 times from 1990 to 2011 or 18, something like that. And he was in the Guinness World Records for climbing. I think he held the Guinness World Records till 2018. Someone came along and beat that. I don't know how. So yeah, we met to, got to meet this guy. He was running an expedition for a group himself, and we got introduced to him. Only a 10-minute conversation, but I thought, wow, what a person to meet on a journey to Mount Everest base camp. And I was able to ask him a few questions in literally over 5 minutes. And my first question was, what inspired him to go there so many times? I mean, I nearly died going there once and just here at the base camp. What inspired him? And he said that at the time, for Himalayan mountain guides, it was about money in their pockets. The Sherpas, they support treks to Everest base camp, but some of them support, foreigners like ourselves to Everest peak where it's dangerous. And, not always because they want to, but to put money on the table. So he said that was his first inspiration of why he started. And, I think his first journey was in relation to that. And then, of course, he said that, then who wouldn't want to go to the top of Everest? So to me, it demonstrated, the importance of having that strong why. And my other question was, how did it feel? And he said it was like being, in heaven, he said. So, it was a really inspiring conversation. Like I said, it was a very brief conversation, but then I researched more about him afterwards, after, you won't believe there is actually something called Everest Link Wi-Fi, which some parts of Everest, you can actually get Wi-Fi in the tea houses in the evening. So, I've done a bit of research, and, I found that story. And, and now he runs a foundation to help the Himalayan people in terms of education, so they don't have to be forced to, do dangerous climbs, etc., to put money on the table, and kind of going down the educational route. So yeah, very, very inspiring man. Like I said, very brief encounter, but what an encounter to have. And it was quite inspiring.
Yeah, and I love that. Spoken like a real coach. You went straight in for the curious coaching questions. Oh, fantastic. Now, all the best coaches walk their talk, and they live and breathe coaching, and you're certainly someone who lives and breathes coaching, taking it up to Everest, asking coaching questions, to sort of people that you meet along the way, and obviously keeping that, that real coaching mindset, which, obviously really helped you to keep focused at times that potentially, were the hardest points of the trek. Now, tell us a little bit more about how you actually ended up coaching someone that potentially could probably almost get in the Guinness World Records itself at being the highest altitude coaching session ever. What was that all about?
I booked the trek by myself, so I didn't go with anyone. But you get people from around the world. So there was supposed to be 5 people on the trip. 2 got COVID, so they didn't come. But then it was a father and daughter from Ireland, and it was myself. So there's only 3 of us on the trip. But then we had 2 Sherpa guides with us. Of course, you spend 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 days with these guys. And what do you do apart from walk and talk, right? So, you get and, these guys are there on every step of our way, making sure we're eating properly, making sure we're drinking enough fluids. Every evening, we used to have a health test. So they used to check our blood pressure. Altitude sicknesses, can kill, you can get swelling of the brain. So, I know it sounds a bit dramatic, but they check your health every evening, where they measure your blood pressure and check your oxygen saturation. So of course, you talk to these guys, they become friends. And one of the guys was telling me about his dreams, his own dreams. And he was an athlete, an ultra marathon runner in Nepal. And when I mean ultra marathon, those who don't know, even I didn't know, but ultra marathon runners don't do 25-kilometer runs. They do 100, 120, 150 kilometer runs. And he was telling me about how he had a dream of being an international champion, and he's already doing quite well in Nepal. After our days of 5 to 8 hours of hiking, he used to come back, get changed, and go for a 30-kilometer run in the mountains after he's been with us all day. It's absolutely inspiring. I mean, he was an absolute machine, ripped to shreds, a very fit person. And of course, on the journeys, we're talking about goals. And I thought, he mentioned about his dreams, but he said he doesn't quite know how to get there. So one evening at 3,400 meters, I think, Namche Bazaar, we were acclimatizing for about 2-3 days, but these acclimatizing days are at that height, but we still walk, do a 3-4 hour trek, and then we come back down, etc. So one evening in one of the tea houses just after dinner, I said, look, why don't we sit down and, just brainstorm a few ideas. And, he was asking me, what should I do? And I started off by saying, why don't you make an Instagram page and this and that? And I thought, hold on a second, what are you doing? So I thought, actually, let me take him through the coaching process. So, we found a few bits of scrap paper because, there wasn't much around. And sat down with him, I got him to do the Wheel of Life, as we know, all the Wheel of Success, and got him to highlight the key importance areas of his life. Of course, running was one. And took him through the coaching process, got him to define why this is important to him, go through the coaching process, etc. And by the end, he had a clear indication of where he wants to go, and he had his first steps. And it was interesting because, so Nepalese, obviously people in Nepal speak Nepali. They also speak Hindi. I'm fairly fluent in Punjabi. I can speak a bit of Hindi and get away with it. So I was speaking to him in Hindi, and his Hindi was okay. Mine was not great. So then we had 2 other guys who were then and in certain times translating between us. So it was a whole team effort. So not your typical coaching session, but yeah, like I said, he defined what he wanted, why he wanted it, and then left that session. And we still keep in contact now. I think he's on Instagram. So so I hope and for me, I thought I'm here. Someone's telling me about what their dreams are. I felt like I've got a skill to do that because, as coaches, it's all about goal setting and helping others. And I thought, what an amazing opportunity for me to do that. And, and I've done it. And I must admit, it left a bit of a lump in my throat afterwards in that evening because I thought, what, this feels so good. So it was really, really good. And then of course, I put it on, on LinkedIn, and just sort of our pictures of us kind of holding our heads thinking but it was amazing. Like I said, it was a real honor, and like I said, he inspired me. I mean, God, what he does, he really, really inspired me. And I thought, well, how can I help? What can I do my bit to help them on this journey? So,
I mean, what an incredible gift that, that we have as coaches to be able to offer that as a gift, to somebody. You were in the midst of actually the biggest challenge of your life, yet you were able to give that gift of coaching to somebody who potentially may never have been able to tap into or access coaching. So, really inspiring, to be able to do that. And, that's part of a coach's server's heart as well, isn't it? Fantastic. Apart from we never miss an opportunity as a coach, do we, to do coaching?
Yeah, why not? I thought I hadn't coached for a while, so I thought I'd better brush up with my coaching.
So this year's theme
was good.
during International Coaching Week is all about reimagine the future. And I'm not sure after Everest, what's next for you. But how do you see your skills as a coach potentially evolving over the next 5 years or so?
Coaching is definitely going to be part of my life. Like I said, I'm opening conversations at work at the moment in terms of coaching. So, what that looks like completely, for the foreseeable future, it's, using my coaching skills to support, my current role and support the business. And in the future, who knows, I'm not too sure what step 5, 6 looks like, but I'm doing step 1, 2, and 3. And who knows, what that will transform to. And I guess for me, probably one of the important things which I haven't mentioned, and for people watching, is that people don't know this, that I approached Sharon when I saw Sharon on those 2 days, on the 1st and 2nd of Feb. You obviously done some presentations, and the other thought that came across my head is, if I want to be the best coach, I've got to be coached by the best. So Sharon, I don't know if you realize, but it was June 2020 when I contacted you and asked you if you would do coaching with me. So I think that's been a great investment, because you've been my coach for the last 1.5 to 2 years now. So I appreciate your help with that, because you've definitely worked and supported me, through my coaching goals. And then actually I want to mention a couple of others. So Stefanos Papadopoulos, who's also a coaching academy student, we coach each other on a weekly basis, I think on a weekly basis at 7 p.m. every Monday. And then Neve Walsh as well, who I know you also know now. I'll go. So yeah, I would say as coaches, it's important to be a coach, but I think it's also important to be coached too. And I think that's definitely a valuable lesson that I've learned, is you got to practice what you preach. And if we're coaching others, we also need to be in that environment of continually being coached ourselves. And I think, the combination of all of that has definitely led me. So yeah, so like I said, thank you. And hopefully you'll still want to coach me after this today. Don't cancel my contract. Please don't cancel my contract. But yeah. So like I said, looking forward to continue having you as my performance coach. So
bless you. It's all about you today, not about me. But anyway, so that's fantastic. And what I really love is how actually you have pivoted, taking coaching into your your professional environment and your workplace, and that you're having serious conversations where work is concerned. So yeah, absolutely. And that community within the Coaching Academy of connecting in with other coaches is invaluable. And if you're on the start of your journey, what Sushil has said is absolutely spot on. Make sure you get your study buddies and your accountability buddies, and they often end up being lifelong sort of supports in the journey. Sushil, we're coming up to the end of our time together, and it's been totally fascinating to hear about coaching from a completely different perspective, which was why I was so interested in getting you to come and share your story. Now, on all coaching conversations, I always ask the guests just to give a practical tip for coaches and aspiring coaches to take away and use either for themselves or with their actual clients themselves. So I'm going to ask you if you have a tip that you could share with us today for either a coach or an inspiring coach.
I would say have a clear definition of when you want to qualify by, because as we know, it's not an easy process to go through. It took me 1.5 years. Have a clear vision of when you want to qualify, and then have a real strong plan behind it. and what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. I think, back to kind of, I guess, the basics, what you need to get done, when you need to get it done, and have faith in the process. When I started, I thought, God, how am I ever going to qualify as a coach? There's so many different components to it, and you literally, I think you literally just have to break it down and focus on first things first, and and go through the process. So yeah, have a very strong plan of how you're going to get there, and like I said, focus on those those daily, weekly goals, to really get you there, and you will get there. It just takes time.
Fantastic, love that. And that sort of, we've gone full circle, because you're now talking right back to where we started, which was like, start, we might be, might not know about all of those things, but we start with the very first step. You don't need to be brilliant to start, but you have to start to be brilliant, is what I always say. And yeah, fantastic. I've so enjoyed hearing about your incredible journey and your continued journey in using coaching and walking your talk.
Thanks very much for watching. Hoping you found the content today really, really useful. Look out for more tools, resources, videos from the Coaching Academy, and enjoy. See you soon.